Well, for those of you who, like me, were around in the late 1970s and learned to program on a computer like the really influential Apple II, those are the actual sounds that it used to make when you booted it up and it began spinning its floppy drive. And I've got the Virtual 2 emulator running here on my Mac, and I want to use it to prove a point today. I've been talking a lot during this course about BDD and how great the tools are like Cucumber, that as long as you can interact with a running application, as long as you can send input to it and monitor its output, then you can automate how you test that application. Now, we've done that with Cucumber for our SaaS apps, but today I'm going to do it using basic programs that run on the venerable Apple II, or at least on this emulator. And here's the strategy that I'm going to use. Any application deployed on Mac OS, you can talk to it while it's running through a facility called AppleScript, which is part of the Mac OS operating system. And there's a Ruby gem called AppScript that allows Ruby programs to send messages over AppleScript. And in the case of this Apple II emulator, I can send it commands to mimic typing at the keyboard, just like I would do manually if I were using the emulator. And I can send commands that allow me to see what's on the screen. If I'm looking at the text mode screen, I can essentially get an array of characters like a big string. If I'm looking at one of the graphics modes, I can get a pixel map of the image of the Apple II screen. So I'm using that ability in Cucumber here to set up a couple of scenarios where I can type some lines of a program, type the word run, which is how you cause a basic program to execute, and using then I should see to examine the screen. So just to prove that it works, we're going to run the first scenario, which is just hello world. It's a pretty simple one, but as you can see, it's correctly stimulating the emulator by entering key presses, and once I type run, I can look at the output and verify that indeed it printed out hello world. A slightly more complicated program is our good old friend Fibonacci. This is the iterative version written in BASIC. It's pretty naive, but it's a little more complicated in that it requires the user to type input while the program is running. The user is prompted for which Fibonacci number to compute and has to type it in. So if I'm going to run this scenario, sure enough, the program is typed in, the program is run, and there's an input prompt where I get to type which Fibonacci number I want. So there it is. If you can stimulate the program's input and if you can read the program's output, then you can automate it. And that means that there's no obstacle from using a great modern tool for BDD like Cucumber to run programs on an emulated machine that is over 30 years old.